You ever get that gut feeling that something just didn't feel right from the start, even if you couldn't quite explain it? That's exactly how people are looking back at Meghan Markle's entrance into the royal family, because let's be honest, something about the whole thing always felt off. Like watching a thriller a second time and suddenly spotting all the warning signs you missed before. This wasn't your typical Hollywood actress meets prince fairy tale. Nope. It's starting to feel more like a slow-burning plot twist where every moment had a hidden meaning, and now a bombshell has exploded across the headlines. Word is, Prince William allegedly told close friends that Meghan Markle had her sights set on him, not Harry. Yup, him, the future king. The quote going around, "She wanted to sleep with me." Not said to the media, not caught in a mic slip. This was supposedly told in confidence, behind closed doors. And now, the secret's out. Let that marinate for a moment, because if it's true, this takes the already messy royal drama and turns it into something way more personal. We're not just talking family politics or tabloid noise anymore. This touches deep on loyalty, betrayal, and blurred boundaries between two brothers who were already walking a tightrope. And the wildest part? Some folks claim the signs were always there. Even before Meghan met Harry, those close to her say she was already deep diving into royal life. Not just curious, obsessed. She knew the hierarchy, the protocols, who was next in line, and most importantly, who had real influence. And sitting at the top of that power pyramid, Prince William, the golden child, the heir, respected, refined, and born into royalty. Meghan, according to insiders, saw all of that and was intrigued. But this wasn't your everyday admiration. Some believe it was calculated, strategic even. William wasn't just interesting, he was ideal. Powerful, stable, spotless image, king in waiting. If that's true, then Harry might not have been her first royal target. He might have been the fallback plan. Now imagine that playing out behind palace walls. What if William noticed something strange early on? Maybe a weird vibe during a chat, a compliment that felt a little too personal. Nothing loud or obvious, but just enough to feel off, enough for him to pull Kate aside and share what he was sensing. And if Kate picked up on it too, that could explain everything. The cold shoulder, the awkward silences, the tension bubbling at public events. Because maybe it wasn't just about Meghan being American or a rule breaker or even shaking up tradition. Maybe it was something a lot more personal. Now picture Harry. Hearing that kind of thing from your big brother, the guy you idolized growing up, must have felt like a gut punch. What would you do if your brother told you your wife might have been into him first? Deny it? Brush it off? Or start replaying those early moments in your head, wondering what was real and what was part of some hidden agenda? This kind of rumor, it doesn't just cause tension, it fractures families. And that might be exactly what happened. Because after that alleged confession, things got icy, real icy. Harry and William, already on thin ice, reportedly stopped talking. Meghan and Kate, more like two strangers awkwardly coexisting under the same royal roof. Every royal event suddenly felt like a PR nightmare. Every look, every whisper turned into tabloid fuel. And behind the scenes, you better believe it got heated. Arguments, accusations, maybe even some royal ultimatums being thrown around. Yet publicly, radio silence. The palace stuck to its classic motto, never complain, never explain. But let's be real, some rumors are just too big to keep under wraps. And this was volcanic. If William really said those words, he must have been done. Done with keeping the peace, done with pretending everything was okay, done with ignoring that creeping suspicion that something wasn't quite right. And now that it's out in the open, it's like the floodgates have opened. The silence is shattered. But here's the kicker. Meghan, she hasn't said a thing, not a peep. And for someone who's gone toe-to-toe with the press, the royal institution, and even the British media at large, that silence is loud. So what's going on? Is she planning her comeback statement? Is her legal team on standby? Or is her silence a statement in itself? Either way, the world's watching, and they're asking the hard questions. Was Meghan's royal romance really built on love, or was it part of a master plan that didn't quite go the way she expected? Did she genuinely fall for Harry, or did she settle for the spare when she couldn't get the heir? The deeper we dig, the more tangled the story becomes, and we're just scratching the surface. Behind the polished palace photos and perfect public smiles, things were unraveling from the very start. Royal life may come with crowns and carriages, but at the end of the day, it's still just a family. family, a family filled with ego, jealousy, and unresolved tension. And in the middle of it all, Meghan, William, and Harry, a royal triangle ticking like a time bomb. Staffers who were there during those early royal engagements say they noticed something was off. Not scandalous, not dramatic, but just strange. Meghan was magnetic, almost too magnetic. One palace aide claimed her energy around William felt different. She was overly charming, smiling wide, holding eye contact longer than necessary. At first, people brushed it off. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe she was just being polite. But after a while, it started to feel like a performance, like Meghan was always on. Whether she was with Harry, William, or mingling with guests at formal dinners, it never let up. And Kate? She wasn't blind to it. She noticed, but instead of reacting with drama, she shut down. No gossip, no drama, just distance. Her body language changed. The private Duchess to Duchess chats? Gone. Friendly moments? A thing of the past. What was left? A cold, professional front, at best. And that shift didn't go unnoticed. Not by the press, not by royal watchers, and definitely not by those close to Kate. She went from warm and welcoming to reserved and guarded, especially around Meghan. Now imagine what William was going through. You're the future king. Your every move is under a magnifying glass, and your brother's new wife is triggering every internal alarm you have. Do you speak up? Do you talk to Harry? Or do you stay silent to keep the royal image intact? From what sources say, William tried to stay calm, but the moment he allegedly said, "She wanted to sleep with me," that was the moment the dam burst. That wasn't just a casual remark, it was a full-on detonation, a direct hit to the royal foundation. Whether he meant it literally, figuratively, or somewhere in between, that comment likely blew open every unspoken issue between the brothers. And for Harry, it was personal. Even if he thought William was mistaken, or even lying, it planted a seed of doubt. And that kind of seed grows fast. After that moment, everything changed. Suddenly, every past interaction between Meghan and William was being rewatched like scenes from a mystery film. Every joke they shared, every casual conversation, it all took on a whole new meaning. And Harry, who's always had Meghan's back no matter what, wasn't about to let it slide. Instead of trying to repair the growing cracks in the family, he pulled further away. The man who once tried to be the peacekeeper started shutting doors. And fast. That royal exit everyone talked about? It wasn't a graceful goodbye anymore. It started to look more like an escape. Insiders claim that behind the palace walls, the tension was suffocating. Conversations were clipped. Meetings felt hostile. There were times William and Harry wouldn't even make eye contact. Meghan and Kate, like two porcelain figures placed in the same room, silent, cold, and worlds apart. Everyone around them could feel the pressure. It was a royal family hanging on by a thread, smiling for the cameras while barely speaking backstage. And while the press tried to decode the tension, blaming culture clashes, jealousy, or palace politics, this new claim might have been the missing piece all along. A betrayal so personal, it couldn't be handled with PR spin or polite statements. It hit at the core. Now people are starting to question, was Meghan really playing the long game from the beginning? Some say yes. They believe her rise into the royal spotlight wasn't luck or love, it was strategy. They point to her flawless interviews, her ability to sway public opinion, her timing. To them, Meghan was never winging it. She was executing. William was the dream scenario. And when that didn't work, enter Harry, charming, vulnerable, and just enough inside to get her in the door. But there's another side to this story. Meghan's supporters argue that none of it was calculated. They say she was just bold, self-assured, and unprepared for the stiff, icy traditions of royal life. She didn't chase influence, she simply refused to play small for outdated traditions. And whatever admiration she may have had for William, it was superficial, fleeting, and long gone by the time Harry entered the picture. But regardless of which version you believe, the damage was done. This rumor, true or not, created a fracture that only widened with time. Now that it's out in the open, it's impossible to ignore. Every photo, every public smile, every balcony wave is being reanalyzed under this new lens. And right at the center of it all, Kate. She's been the quiet force, never gossiping, never responding, never breaking. Through Meghan's rise, the rumors, and even the infamous royal departure, Kate stayed poised. But don't mistake silence for weakness. That calm presence may have been her most powerful move yet. Because while the headlines focused on Meghan's every move, Kate never cracked. She just quietly kept her ground, knowing the storm would eventually pass or expose itself. But silence doesn't always mean serenity. While the palace continues to parade its polished exterior, those internal cracks are only growing deeper. Meghan and Harry might be thousands of miles away, but their ghost still haunts Kensington Palace like an unspoken truth no one wants to say out loud. And now, with this bombshell about Meghan's alleged interest in William making its rounds in the press again, the heat is back on, hotter than ever. But what's catching people's attention isn't just the gossip, it's the pattern. Meghan has always come across as confident, socially sharp, and unapologetically bold. Her fans call it fearlessness. Her critics? They call it calculation. And when you match that energy with the whispers now circulating about her early royal motivations, it starts to form a narrative, one that paints Meghan not just as a royal outsider, but as someone who might have been playing chess, while everyone else was still setting up the board. People from her early Hollywood days say she had an air about her, a sense that she was meant for something bigger. But it wasn't about dreams, it was about direction. They say she followed global news, royal gossip, elite families, not for fun, but like someone preparing for a major role. And when Meghan met Harry, everything moved fast. Suspiciously fast. The engagement was a whirlwind. The wedding? A global event. One day she was starring in Suits. The next, she was waving to crowds beside the future Queen of England. To the public, it was a Cinderella story. To royal insiders, it felt like a bypass of everything royal life usually demands. Protocols bent, rules ignored, tradition tossed aside. Then came the unraveling. Rumors of staff drama, clashes behind palace doors, media feuds, and eventually, the Oprah interview heard around the world. Meghan and Harry laid it all out. Racism, isolation, fears for their security. They were done staying quiet. But through all of that, this one detail never came up. This alleged moment between Meghan and William. Maybe it was too complicated. Maybe it was too explosive. Or maybe it was too real. Now that it's out, Meghan's silence feels even louder. This is someone who clapped back at tabloids, challenged the monarchy, and held her own on international television. So why the silence now? Some say she's waiting for the right moment. Others think there's nothing to deny. But either way, her quiet is only adding fuel to the fire. As for William, this is a no-win situation. He's always been the polished one, the steady hand. So for him to say something as direct as, "She wanted to sleep with me," that's not something he'd throw around recklessly. Those who know him say, if he said it, he believed it. And if he believed it, he probably held onto it for a long time, maybe too long. That puts Harry in the most heartbreaking position of all, caught between his brother and his wife. Imagine hearing something that massive from your own brother. Even if you don't believe it, how do you forget it? How do you move on? And maybe that's why Harry left the way he did. Fast, emotional, and ready to burn the bridges behind him. Maybe he wasn't just running to something. Maybe he was running from something. Of course, the royal family will never publicly comment on any of this. They'll stick to the photo ops, the charity work, the polished statements. But behind the scenes, this wound runs deep. Too deep for the usual band-aid of public smiles and vague press releases. The public? They're over the fairy tales. They want the truth, the scandal, the raw, unscripted drama. And this rumor, it delivers all of that. Now, all eyes are on Meghan. What's her next move? Will she speak out? Do another Oprah-style tell-all? Release a statement? Fire back on social media? Whatever she does next will define this next chapter. Because if there's one thing Meghan knows how to do, it's take control of the story. Meanwhile, William and Kate will do what they've always done: stay calm, stay royal, and carry on. But the public will see them differently now. Every smile from Kate will be seen as quiet strength. Every glance from William a possible tell, because now the world knows. There's more to the story. There always was. This isn't just about a royal feud anymore, it's about broken trust, power plays and blurred intentions. It's about what happens when fantasy clashes with ambition and how one whispered sentence, just 7 words, "She wanted to sleep with me," might have changed the entire course of royal history. And now, the royal family may never be the same again.